It's a beautiful night here in Ontario, Canada. This really doesn't do it. It is absolutely pouring. I just watched Widespread Panic Race. I didn't want to watch him race because I knew exactly what would happen. James so focused on keeping him trotting that he forgot there was a race on. And just kind of run him through the inside. I love my brother to death, and he's the best driver in Canada, but sometimes watching him drive a trotter at its first lifetime start is much like watching an awkward love scene in a movie. It's oh my God. Like, just move the horse to the outside. It's okay. He's not going to die. He's not going to die if you just move him. Anyway, whatever. He got around, he got a flat line, and he actually looks like he's improving. You know, it took a long time for this horse to get it, but you guys don't remember how crazy he was trotting and how crazy he was all along. He actually looks very, very well behaved. You know, Dominic and the guys there have done a great job with this colt. And it's not that he's a killer, but I think he's going to be a good little horse for us. You know, I don't think you're going to see him show up in Indiana this year, but I think he will next year. I like Widespread Panic, and I like what he has done. You know, let's rewind all the way. I didn't do a video last night. Wasn't a whole lot to talk about. Oakwood Cowboy obviously didn't race well, but I can tell you why. And White Tiger, Amy's just dying to talk about White Tiger. White Tiger trotted in 52 and 228. You know, for those of you out there, most of you understand this, and it's frustrating when James drives Tiger the way he does sometimes. You know, he has that wonderful move where he just slams him into a blind switch down the lane, and you just want to scream at the TV. But we know what usually happens his next start. He comes out and he races like he did last night. You know, I think he's a better horse than Okeanos, but Okeanos got a good trip and capitalized. And Tiger really didn't do his typical Tiger moonwalk. He fought on a little bit, 28 and a piece on the end of it, but that's a good mile, 52 and 1. Proud of the way he raced, and you know, he's into his 7th year. You know, I keep watching the money for his money up. I can't wait to see him get to $500,000 because it'll just remind me he should be at $1 million. But you
can't ever compliment that horse. You always have to.
But he did race good last night. Oakwood Cowboy. So here's the thing. Remember last week we said he was pounding the bike on James. He was still a little tender on that left hind. He was hitting the bike again last night, and we had a big bike. It's as wide as a bus. He never should have hit it. And I can tell you why. Now, we had him shod right before we get the Mohawk 3 starts ago. Daryl Thiessen drove him in a normal bike. No discussion of him hitting the bike or pounding the bike. Then James drives him his next start. He's crushing the bike. I drove him last night. And if I had James's bike on him last night, he would have destroyed it before the half. The reason being, he's swimmy behind and he's slipping. His toe's worn right off. Now, I want to talk to everybody. I don't want to keep making excuses for a horse, but this is a horse that clearly has speed, clearly has talent, and obviously has not worked out for us yet. Now, we have a number of ways to move forward with this horse. We can rest him. We can continue to race him. We can continue to change gear on him. Dominic and I had a great discussion this morning just about shoeing and about the horse. I think the one thing James did tell me, because I said, no, he's terrible. He said, no, they scoped him after. He had lots of mucus in there because I told James he no go. Like, James raved about how good he was the week before for the most part. He had lots of pop, just pounding the bike. He paced good. He was fine. It wasn't last night. It was terrible. 2 fingers the whole way. Never once did he tighten the line. This horse is supposed to be so crazy and can't put him in a hole and can't do this. I couldn't catch a hole if I wanted to. I couldn't catch a helmet. We scoped him after. He did have mucus and he was crushing the bike. I think we can fix both. Where it will lead to with this guy, here's a big horse that's already winning 52.5 mile track. Speed is in there. It will come. And all I can ask is for our clients to have patience with this guy. You don't have to. I've already seen people jumping ship and selling their shares. Keep in mind, the fall is coming. He's a relatively sound horse. He's a big, strong colt. Not a ton of racing under his belt for his age. So I think there's still lots of decent paths forward for Oakwood Cowboy. And if people want to jump off the ship, I don't blame you. Can't blame you.
I don't even think you could actually turn him out because he despises being in paddock. We tried to turn him out today, and we had to bring him in after 5 minutes.
Why? What's he do?
He just runs the fence line.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So
usually horses like him, you just turn them out with another horse and they're fine. But he's a big horse, so he might kill another horse. So
yeah.
We got to pick the right
I'm just
horse.
saying, if you wanted to rest him, like maybe he would still benefit from walking. Or
Yeah, he'll be fine. So it's just one of those project things. It's not like he's making breaks, or we can't. He's just not as fast as we need him to be just yet, and he'll get there. I think he'll get back there. I think he will. And White Tiger raced good. Now, I spent all morning, as you know, my bank account wasn't working. I get to the bottom of it a little bit. More of a compliance thing. As you guys can imagine, I cash a lot of checks in that account. And there's a lot of odd checks that come in from odd places. And every so often, I'll get a call from the bank. There'll be a new branch manager. And although I did not get a call, I did get an email, and it was explaining that they were looking through some, concerns. Fraud is what they're looking for. None is found. They asked for a couple of things from our accountant, which Greg sent along. I suspect it will be on tomorrow. I could get angry because I am angry. It really, has put a real wrinkle into our business the last week. And as you can imagine, how much work, how much money flows through that account in and out over a 3, 4, 5 days span. It does put a wrinkle into it. But I guess when your recourse is just to flip out, go to the bank, close your account, and go to another bank, same thing's going to happen, right? We actually have tracks that call us all the time and said, how are you able to cash checks with so many owners and so many things? So although there is once in a while a wrinkle like this, it's never been like this before, and it will be resolved tomorrow. Once Greg, our accountant, had spoke to the bank, there didn't seem to be much of an issue, but they do have hoops to go through too. So it led me to believe that everything would be fine tomorrow morning. With the account, there's not much more I can do about it than that. So it is what it is. For the people waiting for money, I apologize. But for the people trying to send me money, I see it come in. It comes in, so-and-so has sent you money, but it cannot be deposited. I've seen them all. I appreciate it. I truly apologize. But things will be back to normal, hopefully, tomorrow morning. Now, that took up all my day, for the most part. I cooled down. As you can see, I'm a little more subdued than I may have been when I was first talking to everybody this morning. But the day goes on and work is to be done. So we went to the barn. I didn't have a whole lot to do with the barn. I fixed a couple of sets of trotting hobbles for Harry. Got back to the house. And then around 7 o'clock, watched Widespread Panic and decided I would go and get a Starbucks and sit here in the car and do a video in the pouring rain. Because that's what I owed you also. So Widespread Panic, as I said, I thought he raced well. A little frustrated with James, but what are you going to do? He was just being safe with the horse. We did have a couple of winners today. Wow. I had a conversation with Megan about an hour and a half before the race. She said, Fish has a slight temperature. And this is how meticulous she can be, which is cool. Slight temperature after warm-up. No mucus that she could see. She seems bright. She seems fine. I said, well, we could talk about it back and forth, but unless there's enough to scratch her, unless you think there's an issue, then she probably should race. It's your call. Anyway, Fish races, wins in 57-3, and then she sends me a message after. She goes, I always say on the videos, winners win. Winners win. She said, shows me the picture and just full of mucus in her nose. She probably scoped her after, had some upper airway mucus. That's why it really didn't appear to affect her in the race. Nothing down low, no redness, no blood, no mucus. Just, I guess maybe a head cold is what it would be equated to with us. So she'll go on mild antibiotics. She doesn't race for 9 more days, but what a nice filly she's turned out to be, right? And not shocking. We loved her sister, Bomb Hugger. Was a real good 2-year-old. An okay 3-year-old for us, but gave us a lot of good races and did very well for the stable. Her full sister, if you remember back when we bought her at the sale, offset knees. We didn't know how we would be able to train her down. Turned out we got her down a little bit and then had to stop with her knees were sore. Brought her back. Still, her knees were kind of solidifying. You could see before we left her running out the straightaways, a little out of gear. Left stifle was bothering her. Once we got all these things rooted out, got her hung up good and got her to a half-mile track for a few starts. The reason that was important was because on a half, obviously, there's less straightaway than there is on a bigger track like Mohawk. If you watch her last start at Mohawk, you see her run out a little bit down the backstretch, get out of gear. Well, you wouldn't see much of that on a half-mile track. So, and then the addition of Lasix, even on top of that, where she was bleeding a little bit, really just turned this filly around. All those pieces fit together. And Megan had sent me a message a little while ago and said, geez, it's hard to believe she's come this far and turned into such a nice little horse. I said, well, breeding usually comes out, right? You got all those pieces fixed, right? She's trotting better now. She's not interfering. She's trotting the straightaways good. The turns good. You fixed up her breathing with the addition of Lasix, and then she just got better and better and better. 3 wins out of her last 4 starts, and there has to be, call a spade a spade. Jeff and Steve have a little bit coming to them, a little bit of love coming their way too, because there was a pivotal moment 3 or 4 starts ago where we weren't really certain if we wanted to race her in the Excelsior. I was indifferent to it. I was Switzerland on it. Scotty didn't believe that she maybe could do in the Excelsior A, starting at Saratoga where we did race her. Megan wasn't sure. She was kind of on the fence and maybe we'll try. But since Cutie Cumber hasn't really come forward the way Five Fish Species did, a couple of lackluster starts a couple hours away from home wasn't really that endearing. So she was being, much like me, Switzerland. And it was actually Steve that pushed to race her there and said, I think she's deserved a shot. And he's right. Ultimately, that's what it came down to. And then, the past is what it is. She won 3 to 4 races. Looked great today for a filly that did have that fighting that head cold, and then come up with a 57 and 3 mile at Yonkers. She looked very, very good. And is obviously not only can she do, she's a serious player in the Excelsior A division in New York, getting towards the end of the year. So it looks like a pretty good end to the year. I guess I don't want to say end of the year. A strong middle of the year for Five Fish Species for sure. Now multiple stake winner at 3. Very, very happy with the work that's been put into her and the work that has shown up on the track. So great job by Megan and Scotty. And Mark, my brother, did a great job with her last 2 starts. His quote to me was quite simple over her last start. I asked him how'd she race. He said she jogged. That's it. And the way she raced tonight, knowing what we know now after, a big mile from her. So congratulations to all the owners and all my partners in Five Fish Species. And congratulations to my brother, and congratulations to Steve and Jeff, because truth be told, she may not have gone down this path without a little nudge. A great dialogue, and it worked out well. Now, Sunset Acres Girl, I believe, now our winningest 2-year-old. She surpassed Activation, I think. If I'm not mistaken, that's 5 wins and 6 starts. If not, it's 4 wins and 5 starts. It's one or the other. But her arch nemesis was in that race today and finished 4th. A winner today in Cadillac, I think it was called Cadillac, Michigan. So continuing her trend and her winning ways, Sunset Acres Girl wins again today in Michigan. So we had 2 filly trotters that won a sophomore, one a rookie. Cutie Cumber was 4th. I didn't get to see Cutie race. I missed that race by a couple of minutes, and Megan said it was a screwed up race. I don't know what that means. It's tough to watch a replay because it was a non-betting. That's why it didn't show up in the calendar. It was a non-betting event. I don't know why they do that. They hold them for the races sometimes, non-betting. They did that when I was there with Baumhugger a couple of years ago. They had a couple of non-betting races early, and they were Excelsior races. I'm not sure why.
Were there not enough horses in it?
I don't think so. There were 6 or 7 horses in it. Anyway, aside from the banking stuff, my biggest problem this week has been moving everybody around. Every piece on the chessboard is in play now. What I mean by that is no one is glued to one jurisdiction right now. I thought about moving Nothing But a Dreamer over to race in the non-winners at 3 but not 5 at the Meadows. I actually like the class that he's in on Friday, non-winners of 4,000. He can't sustain that class much longer. If he wins, he's out, and then he's up higher. I think if he wins this week, he may go to the Meadows. Next week, we have Horn Player on our way home. Remember, I told everybody she stopped at Northfield to see Dr. Latessa today, and she's on her way home tomorrow. I told everybody this filly has a big mile waiting for her inside. I talked to Harry about her today. I would like to come home and drive her myself in the Casual Breeze, only because I think that James is going to look at the program and not give her the credence she that I know she deserves. I've been racing her on a 5.8. She hasn't got around the turns great, but she's really putting in big efforts on the end of the mile. And I think she is sitting on a 53 mile, 53, 54, which I don't know how much that will play in a race like the Casual Breeze, but I personally believe she belongs in the race. And as I said to one of my partners the other day, if nothing else, racing in the Casual Breeze only helps her resume, I think, as a broodmare. And actually, Steve and I had a good conversation about this. I don't particularly pay much attention to a lot of the brood mares. When I'm at the yearling sale, I like the mare made money. She had a good lifetime mark. Her pedigree is important. But my biggest thing is, how does the horse look that I'm attempting to bin on? So I don't really pay attention to that. Like we had to talk about 5 fish species. If she made 60,000 and won 3 grassroots, I don't care. Really, it doesn't mean anything to me. But that's me. Everybody's different. Ultimately, I would like the pedigree to back up what I'm looking at at the sale. Good looking, big, strong horse. All right, let me look at the pedigree again to validate what I'm looking at, and that would play a role, I think. But I don't necessarily go and seek out horses because the mare was a multiple stake winner. How many times have we seen great mares throw terrible animals, and vice versa? So I usually use the pedigree to validate what I see with my eyes, I guess. And everybody's different. Who knows? It's not like I ever won the Breeders' Crown or the North American Cup, so take that with a grain of salt. What do I know? But when it comes to horses, that's how I look at our horses. That, and above all else, the value attributed to that particular horse. So back to the racing. We had Sunset Acres Girl, big win today. The only letdown of the day was Venice Blue Chip, and I wish I had a better explanation to everybody of what is going on with this filly. This is a filly that looked like she belonged in the next generation. Looked third in the Gold Sire Stakes. Looks like she's finished up good, raced good, trained down like a monster, and then just fell off a cliff her last 3 or 4. Now we've scoped her. There are allergies in there. There is an issue with allergies, but quite frankly, lots of horses have allergies, right? Lots of horses have issues with allergies. Why can't she overcome them? I can't tell you that. We've looked at her blood work. A lot of times there isn't enough markers off of normal to say, oh, it's this or it's that. There really isn't a ton there. When we scope her, now I haven't heard back from Jason on the scope, but I suspect it's because a lot of the scopes we've seen from her, a few pimples, some redness, but nothing that would constitute, that light bulb moment. Oh, that's what's wrong with her. Let's fix that. I just don't see that there yet. So I guess we're at a crossroad where, to me, there's only 2 paths. Do we race her in some fair races and try and get her confidence up, or do we just pull the plug and turn her out in the field? There's a very good argument for both directions. Listen, she would crush a fair right now. She should. She's a Sire Stake filly that's finished last in a Buckeye event today. Or do we just say, hey, things aren't going our way with this filly, do we turn her out? I'll think on that for the rest of the night, but I'm fancy like a little rough in the turns, but pace 55. I think there's a little more there to her. I think maybe we'll let her hobble set a little bit too, and or we just leave them where they are and race her in the fairs too. She's done very well at the fair. She's 2 for 2. I like what I see from both fillies, and I mean, if you step back and look at it, we paid $22,000, $27,000, something like that for Venice Blue Chip. What did we give for her? Fancy, like a little bit more, I think, wasn't it? 32. She's a nice filly. They're both nice fillies. It's just, as I said to Jason in my message to him after the race, that's the thing that bothers me the most. I can, aside from injuries, I don't want to talk about that, but when we talk about horses that just aren't good enough, they get to the races and then just fizzle out. The ones that look really good and then just fall off that cliff, and we have a couple every year. Everybody does. They just, what the hell happened to this horse? That moment or moments where you look back and you're like, how can that horse be the same as that horse? How can they be one horse? That's the thing that bothers me the most about horses, right there. The not being able to quantify it, not being able to figure it out, and not being able to fix it. That's the one. So I'm going to think about Venice a little bit more. Fancy's fancy. I mean, I think her path is fine. So those 2 fillies, one, not shocked. Wish she was a little bit better in Fancy Tail, a little bit better, but not surprised with her outing, and not a bad outing. Venice just thoroughly disappointed in what has taken place with this filly, and I'm going to do my best to figure out, talk to the vet, talk to Jason. My biggest concern is maybe it's just she's fizzling out a little bit. Does that mean she's done as a 2-year-old? Or does that mean we just hide her in the fairs for a little while? I don't know, guys. But I will let you know as we formulate a plan for her. So enough about those 2. Sunset Acres Girl and Fish were both winners. Cutie Cumber, fourth, I think. Not a half-mile track filly, but raced okay to finish fourth, I believe. And then Widespread Panic, first lifetime start. James, what are you going to do? Not shocked that that's how it played out. But hopefully he gets some race next week. I think the biggest takeaway from that is he looked good. He looked smooth. He looked quiet. He looked like a horse that has matured exponentially in the last month, because he was hot, really hot. He was making a lot of breaks. He was doing things wrong. And now it appears he wants to do them right. So huge movements forward huge step forward for Widespread Panic. A lot of growth, a lot of maturity coming forward from that horse. So happy to see that. Now, tomorrow I'm off to the Meadows. We stay close, and I have another drive tomorrow afternoon of Kevin Johnson's, I believe. Thursday, I thought we had more. Now, we had some good news. I Forbid You drew in off the also eligible list, and Tim called me today and said the judges were going to scratch Cupid Express because she had one more win than they thought, and she actually didn't fit the class. I said, no. That fourth win, that is not a parimutuel victory. Parimutuel, yes, but it's a fair race. That was a fair race held at Oak Grove, and when you look at the race, it actually looks like a normal race, right? But if you look at the thing, it's a Kentucky Proud race, and they looked at the 2-1 morning line. They were betting on it. Race went for $10,500. It looked like an actual race. It's not. That's a Kentucky Proud race. She had 3 parimutuel wins, so she still does fit the class that she was entered in and that she did draw in. So she will race. So will I Forbid You, which is good. We have a number of horses entered. Well, only Patrick the Piranha got in Friday. I was so torn on whether I want to race him. If he races very flat on Friday, he may just go to the field for 3 weeks. And for nothing else than to just freshen him up for the winter. Obviously, both him and Sintra, Greatest Ending's been, we only had 2 starts in him so far, but he's going to race this week, I hope, or next week. Delicious Stone had to be scratched today because his blood was all screwed up. Just as I said in my header email to you guys the other day, the race horses, yes, they've been flat. Our aged horses have been flat the last 10 days. For the most part, the gatekeepers, the middle of the roaders have been good, but our top-end horses, our foundation horses, have been flat. So we need to work to get them squared away, straightened up, and however we have to do that. And if that means that Patrick is flat on Friday and we turn him out, then so be it. I'm not saying he will be, but if that's the way it plays out, then that's the way it plays out. Now, we did have another winner today. What the hell's wrong with me? Arson. Arson won today. And it was funny because I had a message from somebody that said, Anthony, virtually, I don't want to paraphrase, they seemed to be a little upset thinking I was under racing Arson, that he belonged in Pennsylvania, not in Kentucky. Those 52, 53 miles should be spent in Kentucky. Well, here's the problem. And I'm going to tell everybody, because I'm sure he's not the only one asking this. Here's the thing about Arson. Arson comes from a very good family. He's a stud. He's a little stud, but he's a nice little horse. Now, the last thing we want to do is break a horse's heart like that. And for those of you thinking the same thing that the gentleman did, it's a fair question, fair ask. I showed him the last chart lines from Poconos, where they raced the last 2-year-old races. The Stallion Series and the Sire Stakes all went 52, 53, all of them, on a 5/8 mile track, slower than Kentucky. So you may think, oh, the Poconos is comparable to the Red Mile. It is Mars and Jupiter when it comes to similar, but not quite. And when it comes to speed on a hot August day, there is no comparison. The Red Mile is probably the fastest place on planet Earth. Maybe the Meadowlands is close, but the Red Mile is generally thought of as the fastest place on Earth. Not the Poconos. Although it's a fast track, beautiful 5/8 mile track, it is nowhere near Kentucky. So speed-wise, it really doesn't match up. And then when you factor in the competition, we're for the most part racing him in the Prospect Series in Kentucky. If you're going to compare Ontario to Kentucky, the reason that's important is to allow him to have some confidence. Closing hard in 52 last week, quarter pulled to the front and drove away today in 53. Now, Todd McCarthy said, he tucks his head and he grabs pretty good. Why don't we go to a mini bit and a choke plate? I hate choke plates. I hate them. But that's just me, and I'm not racing. The horse has to. So if Todd McCarthy thinks it might help, and Eric would like to also, then so be it. We'll race him in a choke plate and a mini bit his next start. But I think if we see this thing through, right? And we have options here. See it through the C division with him and hopefully do very well in the final. We can race him in with experience, a little more experienced, quicker company in the International Stallion if you want. And then I think we finish off the year with the Corbin races, right? Similar kind of watered down company will be there. But the whole point of this 2-year-old season of this colt is not to empty him out. You can only go to the well so many times, and even less times for a 2-year-old. Right? You take a horse like Austral Hanover, you can tell he put out 105%. That's all he could do as a 2-year-old. And that's just as fast as he was as a 3-year-old. I think Arson is improving, but the last thing you want to do for a small horse, a stud like him, is sour him up and put him in where he might get beat up. You allow him to beat up on these horses, who knows what kind of horse comes out on the other end of this. And that's why Arson is where he is. I don't think there's any cakewalks in the Stallion or the Sire Stake competition level waiting for him. At no point will I go to bed or wake up thinking, I wish I had raced Arson in the Stallion Series for $5,000 more. Or I wish I had raced him in the Sire Stakes. I don't think he wins the Sire Stakes. I'm not even sure he's competitive in one right now. Let's see how this turns out. Let's see how the rest of the year works out. Let's see how he comes out as a 3-year-old, and then we'll talk about what took place in hindsight as a 2-year-old. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go. That's my 2 cents. We did have 3 winners today. It's certainly not a perfect day. I'm in the midst of trying to get things squared away here. I thought for the most part the horses raced well. The only one that let me down was Venice Blue Chip. I can't believe I'm saying that. I can't believe I'm saying that in August of his 2-year-old year. That Venice Blue Chip let me down. But, you know, we all know, and I think deep down everybody knows, it does happen. It can happen. It will happen again. And it's happened thousands and thousands and thousands of times in the past where we think, not just us, everybody thinks they got this pretty nice horse, but she just falters through the middle part of the year. Is it allergies? Is there something bothering, or is it maturity? We'll try to get to the bottom of it, but I think our only 2 options moving forward are turn her out and maybe hide her in the fairs for a couple of fair races. Anyway, that's how I see it. I'm sure there'll be lots of dialogue in the coming days over these 2 horses, but for me, we're going to turn the page at midnight because tomorrow's a new day. I have lots to do here before I leave for Ohio. I'm going to stop in Ohio quickly, and then I'm going to go. Right now, we're in the middle of transitioning a bunch of horses over to race at the Meadows over the next week as Northfield Park is down. We have a number of horses racing Thursday. I have to go Thursday afternoon from the Meadows to Scioto Downs. I'm going to race Thursday night at Scioto Downs. Take my time because I'm going to make my way back up to the Meadows on Friday. Saturday afternoon at the Meadows, and I'm going to make my way back over to Northfield Saturday night. I'm going to likely fly out of Hopkins to the Poconos for our girls. Insider trading, no lock there. I looked at the point. She has to do good on Sunday night to make the final of the Sire Stakes in Pennsylvania, but I'm confident she will. She's a good filly. I know she drew 8, but she's overcome everything we've asked her to this year, and I think it won't stop with an 8-hole on Sunday. Pull the Shoes drew 8 also, but again, she's coming in racing pretty good. First start on Lasix for this filly also. And our girl Flashfly, she looks like she caught the toughest division of the Stallion Series, but you know what? Just impressed the hell out of me the other day. I'm eager to race her and eager to see how she races on Sunday evening. After that, I'm going to fly back home and then take a drive back over to Ohio next week with Amy. So still tons going on. No, we're not talking about the yearlings yet. Maybe in a week or so, but not yet. So I will let you guys go. I hope you had a good day. It's been a miserable, rainy evening here in Ontario, but I'm going to sit down and watch the Jays game. Watch the Jays game with Amy and call it an evening. So I'll talk to you all very soon. As I said, as far as the banking stuff, we'll have that resolved in the morning. For the people sending money, I know, I apologize, relax. You can send it tomorrow or at your convenience. Obviously, it's inconvenienced you, so at your convenience. And when it comes to the list of the first of the month or middle of the month payment requests that go out, they'll go out tomorrow sometime. As soon as I get a chance to sit down, we'll start sending all those out. So with that, I'll let you guys go. I'll talk to you all very soon. Take care. See you later.